So we were finally on the last leg of the trip. We got ourselves all packed up from Lake Lurleen State Park, and it was on our way to Hendersonville. This was going to be a long one. Google Maps was saying 6 hours and 31 minutes, 410 miles. I know that probably means at least 7.5 hours plus. Our first stop today is a TA Travel Center in Lincoln, Alabama. We're about ready to cross into Georgia. So we got our first stop out of the way. Getting loaded back up. Get back on the road. So the next stop for the day was planned to be at a truck stop inside of Atlanta. We were going to take the loop around Atlanta, and this truck stop was along the loop. So we get there to this truck stop, and I find out that RVs are not allowed. So they turned us away, and there wasn't any place for me to park the camper. There wasn't any place for us to get. So I just got back out on the loop and started heading around in Atlanta. And the traffic was just horrible. We were just going slower and slower, and it was taking longer and longer. We still hadn't stopped. And finally we said, what if we just look for a state park and see if we can't find us a park and just pull off the road and get out of this madness? And so just like that, before you know it, here we were taking our time again, heading for a state park just outside of Winder, Georgia, called Fort Yargo State Park. I used our Allstays app, which is a great app, by the way, for finding state parks or any kind of camping facilities. So we got to the campground. I had time to get the camper tucked into its spot, and there was still enough daylight for us to get out and walk the dogs, explore the park some, stretch our legs, and we had a good walk, and then we were ready to get settled in for the night. This park was about 10 miles off the interstate, so it worked out pretty well. Well, since we had such a short drive back today from the state park we were staying in to Hendersonville, of course we needed to check out Fort Yargo State Park since we were there. And so after we had our coffee that morning, we just set out for the nature trail. They had one of those guided nature trails with little plaques to tell you what you're seeing along the way, like most state parks have. And so we did that trail, and then of course we had to check out the fort itself. And what Fort Yargo was, it was this building they built to withstand Indian attacks back in the pioneer days. And I'd say they accomplished their task. I don't think any arrows were going to be getting through the fort from the way it looked to me. So after our time there at Fort Yargo, it was time to get back and start gathering up our things for the final leg of the trip back to Hendersonville. So Fort Yargo was a really pretty park. I mean, we weren't there that long. We didn't get to see it. We just saw the immediate area right around the campground where we were staying. But what we did see of it, it was really pretty. That time of year, Georgia, the weather was nice, and some of the trees, the leaves were turning colors on the trees, and so we enjoyed our time, and it really worked out well that we got out of that traffic mess that day before. Well, the movers have come and gone, and so now all of our stuff that was in storage here in Hendersonville is now moved into the house. So we finally made it back to Hendersonville, and we owned our new home, but we didn't have any possessions in our new home. Everything we owned was still in storage. So once again, Fred and Deanne graciously allowed us to stay over at their place while I used their house as a base of operations, and I was calling the local moving companies, trying to get a moving company set up to get our stuff brought over. And we did. We had the stuff brought over, and I'm not bragging or anything, but Kelly and I had done a good job of labeling our stuff, and we were fairly organized in our moves, so everything was just pretty easy to get it spread out among all the rooms. But once again, it was just, we didn't have any beds set up, and we didn't know where everything was for sure, so we couldn't live over there right away. We had to spend several days over at Fred and Deanne's while we got things coordinated. We'd go back and forth each day, and finally we got the stuff spread out between the rooms, and we were able to officially move in at one point, and that was it. We were finally living over at the new place full time. And it looks as though we did a fairly good job of purging. After having a chance to get everything kind of put where it goes, it looks like everything's going to fit. Now there's some kind of noise. They're working on there's kind of tree work going on down there, it sounds like. Anyway, what I was going to talk about was one of the sports around here is leaf chasing, because as you can see, if you don't chase them, pretty soon your whole place gets covered with leaves. So from what I've been able to determine, both from what I've heard a couple of neighbors say and what I've observed, is you got to stay on your leaves, got to keep them blown. So leaves, that's another thing we're learning about living in North Carolina. Leaves, they're a big deal. First of all, the colors. It's just been beautiful watching the colors change when we got back. And the other thing, they write articles about the leaves in the newspaper talking about what color they are up at the higher elevations on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And then, of course, there's the falling leaves. There's leaves everywhere. They fall, and so you got to kind of keep up with them and keep your yard clean. So we kept on enjoying our time moving into the new place. We were finding places to put everything and getting ourselves organized. And then the other big news is we'd started interviewing some subcontractors because we were about to take on a little bit of light remodeling. So that's what was coming up next.